everybody. This is me, Amin.
And this is Alex.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about buy now, pay later schemes and the rise of financial technology services in Malaysia. So as you know, recently, I think this week, so this show is recorded on the 3rd of March. And within this week, I think, in fact, it's today, right?
Yep.
One of Air Asia's group of companies, BigPay,
Yep.
launched a microcredit scheme, right?
Yep. Personal loan.
A personal loan
Yep.
product. And if you're not aware, BigPay is somewhat of like a mishmash of traditional financial service and digital financial service. So it lives in an app, but that app is tied to a physical credit card, and you can top up in your app, and you can power the physical credit card, right? So the balance can be in the physical credit card.
It's not a credit card. It's a prepaid card.
Debit card, a prepaid card, prepaid debit card, a prepaid card,
Prepaid card, yes.
a prepaid Visa or something like that, right? So, BigPay is now taking a step further, and they are able to provide loans of up to
$5,000.
5,000. Okay, micro credit up to 5,000 ringgit, and that had us thinking, right? So, Grab has a similar service called Pay Later, and they're offering micro credit all the way up to 1,000 ringgit. I mean, that's what I've seen so far. I think I saw 3,000 also.
I think it depends on your user habits, and they give based on your risk assessment.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's so we have GrabPay, and then there's a few other services, a few other companies that are trying to get into the
Buy now, pay later. So buy now, pay later is a bit different from what Asia's doing. So Asia's actually loan, like actual loan. It's like how you get, personal loan from
you
banks.
have to apply for it,
Yes,
right?
and you get cash,
Yep.
But for the other services, they are like buy now, pay later. So basically, kind of like how you have credit card back then. Not back then. Even now as well, like you buy stuff like you want, but you don't want to pay upfront. You can pay installments. So this is called buy now, pay later. So Grab has that. Boost also plans to get into that as well. And there are also other third-party services like A2Me, or maybe pronounced as Atomi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's A2Me.
So the rise of all these services, what's the impetus? What is driving the companies to come up with such services, and where is this heading, right? Especially in Malaysia. So we've went through some of the numbers. Alex picked out some of the numbers, right? So what we found out is in the country, among the adult population, 55% of adult Malaysians are either unbanked or underbanked. So unbanked means, these people have no access, or they don't want to access banking services or facilities at all. They don't have a bank account, they don't have a loan, they don't have a credit
ATM,
card, they don't have anything. I mean, sometimes that's a nice life. And then the underbank is people who have bank accounts, but they are not qualified to have access to the banking facilities like loans, credit cards, and other things. So there's 55% of the Malaysian adult population that is underbanked or unbanked. That's like a huge market. So the issue here is all these. It's not an issue. The scenario here is that all these digital services like Grab, BigPay, possibly Touch and Go, Boost, you mentioned just now, right? Is getting into this, and they're going to tap into this 55%. And potentially this 55% is less of a risk for them, because this market is unregulated. There is no law and regulation under Bank Negara or under the Securities Commission to control, for the lack of a better word, money lending to the 55% of the people who are unbanked.
No, actually. Because e-wallets, you need to have a license as well for Bank Negara. You need to have an e-money license.
Yes, but there's no regulations to like how much you can give to these people. There's no regulations in terms of like the interest that you have to pay if you default. So there's no regulation there.
There is actually. So lending money, right? It comes under the Money Lending Act 1951. So for BigPay, for example, they got their lending license for the Ministry of Housing and Local Government. So they actually has provisions for that, for lending money.
Does Grab have for the buy now pay later? Does it have a
buy now pay now? Yeah, that's a different story. So that's like the gray area.
Yeah. So if that can exist, so my point is, if that can exist, then more of this can exist.
Yeah, buy now pay later, yes.
So the thing that we're looking into is like, okay, what is the risk for people who are unbanked and underbanked in Malaysia if they're going to this service, and what is the scenario now in Malaysia when it comes to buy now, pay later and microcredit in terms of just applying from an application, right? So for BigPay, for example, the USP is that you apply and within 5 minutes you get a loan, right?
Yeah, if everything checks out, you get within 5 minutes. If they require more checks, probably take about 1 working day. So they use different data points to evaluate your risk.
How is that submitted?
So, for example, BigPay, right? I think firstly you need to have a verified account, which means that you need to have you must go through the eKYC, basically know your customer. You need to verify using your IC. Then they know you are a legit person, and also they also look at your spending habits because they also have several data points which they don't reveal. So I believe they also look at how you spend money, so they can probably use that data point to roughly see how much you're actually really earning.
But how do they determine that? Like, how do they know how I spend my money if I don't use it on the platform? So do I have to use it on the platform or how?
Yeah, BigPay. Because if you're a customer, they have all your records. That's the same data point I assume Grab's using, but based on how many rides you use, how much you spend, how much you drop in the wallet, they can determine how much you spend.
So it has to be on the platform, lah.
Yes.
So that means if I don't spend on the platform, then
you don't have much records.
So the incentive to you have to provide more, I guess.
Yeah.
Credentials.
Correct, because unlike the normal traditional banking methods, right? It's usually more hassle. You need to send your IC. You need to submit your bank statement or EPF statement or
your
EA
salary
form, slip to prove that you can you're making this much money per month or per annum.
For banks, when they are trying to provide you a loan, the amount is much more than 5,000 ringgit.
Yes, definitely.
It's probably like at least 10,000-15,000 ringgit.
Yeah.
And so the risk is higher, and because the amount is higher. The difference is now, I think BigPay is providing the highest 5,000, if I'm not mistaken, lah. Because like I said, Grab is only about 1,000 or 3,000, so it's within that range, lah, right? So the risk is lower.
Yep. Credit.
Yeah, I mean, the checks for banks to provide you 5,000 ringgit, right? They usually pre-approve. It's usually like a phone call away.
But that's if you have a
If you're
history.
a bank lah.
Yeah, if you're a bank lah, and then they have, of course, if you all your transaction history, then okay, this guy can afford, and they also have access to all the tools like CTOS and all that stuff to see that how much is your credit score and all that.
Yeah. So where is this heading?
So essentially, this is addressing the underserved market, like we mentioned earlier. So this could include a person who just got a job, who has no records whatsoever, who have no access to credit card, even retirees or people who who have no access to
income,
no income. Income, okay, probably tough one. Okay, probably this one segment.
No official income.
No official income. So
does this work for like cottage industries like the makcik?
Yes.
Goreng pisang and
exactly.
Uncle Pao and stuff like that. So it works for them as well.
Yeah, like those macik kia or anyone who making business but don't have like a proper record.
Yep.
Yeah, so that makes it hard for them to get financial assistance from the traditional banks. And as we mentioned earlier, according to the consulting firm Bain and Company, about 55% of Malaysian adult population is still underbanked and unbanked. And I think this gives opportunity for them to get microcredit. Like for example, if let's say someone wants to expand their business or need emergency credit, another simple solution would be, for example, if you're staying in a village and suddenly you need to do emergency repairs and then you don't have access to credit card, how are you going to get money? So this actually helps them a lot in terms of giving microcredit.
They borrow from the ketua kampung lah. I mean, okay, so I guess the kampung people is a bit far-fetched because number one, you have to get into the application.
Yes.
I guess a lot of people will still have phones lah. I mean, but okay, that's another story altogether.
At least it's an avenue for them to access instant credit. And also like for fresh graduates, right? If you want to buy something, let's say you want to buy a phone, for example, but you want to pay upfront, typically it's ideally you use a credit card. But if you don't have access to credit card, they can give you 0% installments. Then this could be an alternative option.
Yep.
And like we mentioned, like for example, like Grab Pay Now Later, also A2Me, you can get buy devices and pay them installment up to 4 months with 0% interest.
Yeah. So and I agree with you, right? So microcredit services provided by BigPay that's been launched today. Grab Pay Later. I think Grab Pay Later is one of the most popular ones in the country, I believe. BigPay is probably high profile because the brand is very well known. They have apparently 1.2 million users in their database. So it is a huge portion, but we don't know whether this 1.2 million is the people who they are targeting. So like Alex mentioned, there's a huge portion of the Malaysian adult population that's that have no access to banking facilities. These people are usually the B40 segment. Now, within that B40 segment, I don't know whether not having access to banking facilities is a choice or it's an option. Sorry, it's a choice or it's what's another word of
Not choice.
it's something that they have no option lah.
Yeah.
Right? So they memang have like very little money or
basically they cannot apply loan. Like we mentioned, right? Those like traders who like start business they just collect cash upfront.
So if
There's
you're
no
like
paperwork.
like a fruit seller or whatever,
or farmer,
a coffee seller or whatever.
Yeah.
The flip side of this, and you've mentioned it as well in terms of the example, right? Credit is useful if you are smart at using that credit. And the Bank Negara Malaysia is quite concerned about this because these operations are actually essentially operating in a grey area. There is currently no rules and regulations that regulate buy now pay later services in general. With loans, like you mentioned, there is somewhat of a rule, but the general concern is with such easy access to credit, to money, to 5,000, 10,000 ringgit, whatever, right? It may lead to people spending beyond their means. So
like iPhone 13. Okay, I'll take it on buy now pay later.
Yeah.
Worry about the installment later.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I just bought iPhone 12. Now iPhone 13 is out. So you start scheming, right? You start like, okay, maybe I can sell off my iPhone 12 and then get a credit for 5,000 ringgit and then buy the iPhone 13. But you probably got a credit on the 12, so you haven't paid the credit on the 12. So now you're double crediting, and we don't know whether these services are talking to each other, right? So things like I'm talking about buy now pay later and what Big Pay is offering in the same sentence, but essentially they're kind of like slightly different. One is a loan, the other one is here's some money we already pre-approved. So there's some differences there. But what I'm trying to say is that there's no these services are not checking with each other. So let's say if it's me, right? Whether Amin has 4,000 ringgit debit on GrabPay, and then now he's going to go to Big Pay and get another 5,000 ringgit. So previously he this B40 Amin, right? So let's say I'm B40, right? I don't have access to 10,000 ringgit. I have no means to pay 10,000 ringgit, but now I have capabilities within these two applications to access 10,000 ringgit.
And also, like you talking about the traditional banks, maybe the reason why they cannot give you that amount of credit is because they cannot prove your income. Yeah. So that's a challenge. So at least if the banks, if they can prove they can know your income, they at least know, okay, this guy, he can probably afford it because it's within their risk scale.
Yeah. So the checks and balances of a bank is far more stringent.
Yeah.
We don't know what is the motivation of an application of a digital service to provide this funds to you. So for example, like GrabPay, right? The GrabPay later. They're providing this free credit, right? Upfront to you that you can use. They're providing this to their Grab riders. They're providing it to their Grab users, and this is risk. So when a company is giving you something for essentially free, right? They're giving you this and you can pay. There's no like credit. There's no whatever. Apparently, if you don't pay the Grab Pay or if you default the Grab Pay later, they suspend you from the account. It's not really strict because I can just open up another account with another user or something like that, right?
I think it's not. I think it's. Yeah, it's although it sounds scary, but I believe they have their own checks and balances in place. Because I think number one, right? There's always like this know your customer, so you can't just simply create another account because to have that facility you need to submit your IC again, which is unique. So you can't do that. You cannot like default one account, create a new one. So but if you're given this credit facility, I think number one is the amount you're given is based on their risk assessment,
on your credit spending and stuff like that.
And also what my feeling is that they're going to base on how much can you live, how do I say this? How much do you depend on Grab app on a day-to-day basis? So let's say you can't live without it, right? Okay, probably I can give you a bit more, and the chances of you defaulting is very low because you're going to use Grab for your rides, for your food. If we remove this access, you're practically paralyzed.
Yeah, but you're looking at it from like a non-B40 perspective. So from a B40 perspective, right? Okay, I would assume that for Grab riders, the credit would be higher because Grab really know them.
Yeah.
And Grab owes their money. So
Yep.
if they use Pay Later to buy a phone or to buy goods from Decathlon or whatever, right? Grab can just offset that from their earnings. So that's fine.
There's some security for them.
And most of them are B40. Now that this access is available, right? So what I'm saying is, it's not me, Amin, that's going to open another Grab account. But let's say I have kids that qualify to get a Grab account. So they're maybe above 18 or 16 or whatever it is. That's the age. Right? Okay, hey, boy, can you just open another Grab account? Another access to 1,000 or 2,000 ringgit.
Yep.
It may not be a lot for us living in the city, but this app is accessible to everybody around Malaysia.
Yeah, and then like you rightly pointed out, right, it's not just Grab because there's so many other services out there. There's like A2Me, and then there's I forgot what's the name of this, Singaporean based. There's a couple of services out there offering similar things. So you can actually own multiple platforms.
That's what I'm saying, right? So this application is like Grab is not talking to Big Pay.
Yep.
They and we don't know whether they're checking with CTOS. And if right, these people are tapping into the 55% of the people that's unbanked or have no access to banking facilities, they have no CTOS credit either.
Yeah.
They have no CTOS credit records either. So they cannot rely on that as a means of checking.
Yep.
Essentially, they're taking a risk, at least a 50% risk. So let's say me, again, I'm in the B50 guy, go to Big Pay. Hey guys, I need some cash. Here's my credentials and whatever. I know I have like a car. I can collateralize or whatever. Can I get 5,000? Oh, sure. Because they are incentivized to give you the loan no matter what. They don't care whether you can afford to pay it or not.
I don't think so.
I don't know. For me, where I'm coming from, if you look at the payday loans in the US, right, the system is incentivized to provide people money. And the more they are at risk of not paying, or the more they are at risk at defaulting, right, the more easier for them to get the loan because they make more money out of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can't make money if you have a lot of customers who are defaulting their loans.
So it's like
you need to balance out.
like a fine line, right, of a person that like can barely pay, but he's paying.
Yep.
And if he pays late, I'm gonna charge some more. So obviously with Grab, there's no default charge. With Big Pay, I don't know.
There's a default charge. I think they're, according to the terms which I saw, they're going to charge you additional 8% on top of the unpaid amount.
Shit, man, that's like a long way.
Yeah, so
8% is huge.
Yeah, so by default, like based on my first impression preview, they're charging 8% interest per annum, which is actually lower than credit card. But if you fail to pay that, they have the right to charge up to 8% on top of that. So the thing is up to you to decide.
Yeah, but where I'm coming from is, and where Bank Negara is concerned, is that people are overspending.
Yep.
They might spend more than they can afford to spend.
Yes.
And they might not spend it on the things like you mentioned, very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, not altruistic, but very pure. Like, I want to improve my business, so I'm going to go to Big Pay or whatever.
Yeah, like usually credits, right? Like having credit is good for rainy days, for emergencies.
Yes.
But instead of solving the needs, right, they use it for their wants.
Yeah.
And I think the problem boils down to the financial literacy in Malaysia, which is quite low.
Yeah, and that's my point, right? So this again is targeted to the B40, the 55% of people that have no access to banking facilities because they have no choice. You would think that their education level is not as high and their financial literacy is not as high just because of their way of living. Suddenly, they have access to so much money, like $5,000 to a B40 person, and I'm not saying this like it's a lot.
Yep.
And to them, like, I'm gonna spend this on sport rims, or I'm gonna spend this on whatever, right? And if they get into the scheme, and okay, I can't pay for Big Pay, I'm gonna get some credit from A2Me or whatever, right? And then I'm gonna pay Big Pay. It's just a bottomless pit. And my concern is, where I'm coming from this side of the table, is that the banks are not looking at this, and that's where this gets very scary. Just only recently, there's a Consumer Credit Act that Bank Negara Malaysia is working with the Securities Commission. They are trying to implement this year. But the problem is, the services are already out. So there will be tons of people who previously couldn't go into debt.
Now they can.
Now they can. And that's scary. Because already people who are banked that can go into debt are going into debt, and are being declared bankrupt. A high number of young people in the country are declaring themselves bankrupt because they have no means to pay their credit cards. They have no means to pay their loans. They have just look at the repay rate of PTPTN.
Yeah, and also look at the recent MCO, right? So even the banks had to offer more moratoriums, which isn't really helping because they pay the interest.
Yep.
And a lot of people are struggling with that.
Yes, a lot of people are struggling. But at the same time, on the flip side is there is no degree of control even for those who, number one, they are struggling, okay, they take it. But even for those who are not struggling, there's no degree of control because I hear a lot of conversations where people go like, can you afford the do you qualify the moratorium? Yeah, just take it lah. You know, free money or free. You don't need to pay. Even if you can pay, it's like, oh, I'll go buy a bicycle, I'll go buy rollerblades, I'll go buy gym equipment. And it's exasperated because even KWSP, at first they offered like 10,000 ringgit, right?
Yep.
That you can extract.
Basically, you're getting money from your future.
You can withdraw, right? You're
stealing from your future.
You are now owing money from your future self.
Yep.
And these are the people who are banked.
Yep.
So
like the withdraw 10,000 today, right? That 10,000 could be worth a lot more in the future if you don't touch it.
Yeah. So I mean, and they're taking it.
Yeah.
Like they're not just taking. They're taking it. It's like I've seen conversations. It's like, oh, why are you taking the 10K? I'm gonna buy a phone. I'm gonna buy a bicycle. I'm gonna buy a computer. I'm gonna buy an iPad.
And that's just sad.
It's sad, but do we blame them? I mean,
we're allowing it.
They have access. Like, who made that decision? Again, the decision might be for good things. Like, oh, these people need help. Let's take money because the government has no more money to give these people. Okay, let's take that 10,000 ringgit from KWP and then you can use it.
Initially, it was meant to be that way. Initially, you used to be more stringent, like you must prove that you have lost income. Yeah. And after that, I think they just let the floodgates
free
open.
flow.
Okay, anyone can just apply.
Yep.
Yeah, no other pre-checks.
Because everybody was like, hey, he can take. Why I cannot take? My situation is the same as him.
Yeah.
Okay lah, like this lah. Everybody take lah. Whoever wants to take. And everybody took it.
Yeah. I cannot prove that I'm not making money.
Yeah.
I cannot prove that I'm losing money.
Yep.
Then this okay lah. Anyone can just take.
Everybody took it to a point where KWSP had to say like, hey guys, we don't have. It's not to say we don't have enough reserves to give you the money because it's going to be detrimental to their investment portfolios and whatever.
It will affect the payout in the future.
So my point is, these are people who are not incentivized to give you loans. These are people who are like, hey, we have investors, we have portfolios to take care of, we have check and balances to follow. Mm-hmm. I become very worried when, hey guys, we got money. You want money? You want to buy iPhone? Because I don't know how Big Pay is going to market their service. But if they, and the biggest red flag is if they started marketing their service as fund your dream holiday or get the latest gadget or, need a new sport room for your car, then you know that this pitfall is similar. You just do your research. It's called payday loans. It's a sickness that's happening in the US. I'm not sure I don't think it's going to be as bad, but I mean, bad or worse than bad is just bad.
But at the end of the day, right, it's all boils down to the users, the consumers lah. Because it's a facility that can be used for good. But like you said, right, it can be abused, and people are spending beyond their means.
No, I wish it's as easy as that. If it's as easy as that, right, then the cigarette companies can still advertise on billboard. The alcohol companies can still advertise in magazines and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, it's up to the drinker and smoker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, before the rise of buy now, pay later, before the rise of these microcredit facilities, we have alongs, and people get themselves into trouble knowing that they can really get into some serious trouble with high interest.
The thing is with along, right? The big fat black line there is it's illegal. With buy now, pay later, with microcredit that is so easily accessible, it's not.
They're like legal alongs, right? They actually have
money
license.
lenders lah.
Yeah, money lenders, yeah. But the interest can be super high as well. Could be higher than the rest. And why they go there? Because they cannot get loans from the banks.
So for me, some of them go there as not for me. Okay, the experience that I've been able to gather is people go to money lenders or along or whatever, right, as a last resort.
Yep.
After they've maxed out their credit card, after they maxed out their loans, they go to these people. And these people who are the ones that have jobs, that have bank account, that they can pay, right? This is the 45% of the public the adult population. Now, the 55% who struggle, but they are living cash. They're living in cash, right? Previously, this is not available to them. This
easy credits. Yeah.
What this temptation
Yep.
is not available to them. So they were not in
Exposed to this.
They have
Yeah.
no motivation to go to loan because they're not in debt.
Yeah. So basically, you can afford, don't buy. Yeah. Simple.
Yes.
Yep.
Now they have this temptation, and for me it's scary because only now Bank Negara is looking at regulation. That's the flip side lah. Because you also mentioned there are the good things, right? Let's say I wanna paint my car, or not paint prepare for an accident, for example.
Yeah. Let's suddenly got in accident, or maybe suddenly your roof got blown up by a storm. I need to repay it fast. I don't have cash right now.
Yep.
So the traditional way is you borrow from friends, uncle, auntie,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Hey, can you borrow money and all that?
Mhm.
Hello. Must be selling insurance or want to borrow money.
Selling insurance, mutual fund, MLM, borrow money.
Yeah.
All four of it requires money.
Yeah.
So but this one is an app. You can
Yep.
get it within 5 minutes. It's
Great power comes great responsibility. That's all I can say.
okay. All I can what I can say to that is you cannot depend on the people to be responsible. That's all I can say.
So whose fault is that?
It's not nobody's fault. What I'm saying is
Yeah,
we
I
need
mean,
regulation. We need education. We need as Big Pay goes out, and as Big Pay goes out and they start spending money on media for people to get their loans, there should be another counter campaign from either AKPK or BNM
Yep.
or some society, whatever, to counter that. It's like, have you seen this ad? Before you go and apply for the loan, think about this. And then talk about credit blah blah blah. There's none of that.
I mean, I've seen a couple, but it's not as aggressive as I hope it will
No,
be.
the AKPK ads are terrible. It's just like, oh, I don't have any more money to pay. I'm so pressured.
Yep.
And then they go like, okay, the message is call AKPK and we can help you manage your loans.
That's when after.
But that is too late already.
That's after shit happens.
Yeah, it's
How do you prevent it from getting shit in the first place?
Yeah. You only call
True.
AKPK after like, oh, something happened to me. I cannot pay my loans. My husband died. Whatever.
Once your debt reach above your head, then you call AKPK.
So whatever, there should be like a counter campaign. Every time a company tells you, get a loan for your next sexy phone, get a loan for that anniversary dinner, get a loan for that iPad or that flashy new sport rim for the car, or get a loan for a down payment for the car. There should be a counter campaign to say, before you consider that, look at these options.
You mean like you want to implement like labels on cigarette, like similar to labels on a cigarette packet?
I don't know whether that's possible, but we at least should start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree also. Like even like buy now pay later, it's like there's no barrier or whatever. It's like, oh, you have the option here. Like usually it's before that, okay, I have the top up first, pay. Now it's like, oh, pay later.
Yeah.
Tempting.
It's tempting.
Yeah.
And it's tempting because you see it at the point of purchase. Coming to the end of the show, I think I'll ask you this question. What is the light at the end of the tunnel? How do you see this being beneficial? That you mentioned before, but okay, after you consider all the things that I've said, how do you think this is useful?
For me, like I said, right, it's the responsibility falls on the user, because the credit, like I said, it can be used for good, but at the same time, you can actually mess up your life. You can get yourself into deeper trouble that is unnecessary.
I'll just come back to this. You cannot say that the responsibility falls on the user when you already know that the user is susceptible to these temptations. It's just exploitation. That becomes exploitation.
Because for me, at the same time, right, if let's say a person want to lend, right, they also needs to have the assurance that you will pay. If they're not comfortable, they'll be going to lose out.
Okay,
they cannot sustain for long. Because I know what I heard that some buy now pay later platforms, they are struggling with the repayments because some people just default. Because you give it so easily, like okay, class example. Let's not talk about Grab or Big Pay because they have our transaction records. You can sign up some buy now pay later service like A2Me. You just type your debit card and you're good to go. Like how are they going to know whether I can pay or not? That's risky.
Yep.
If let's say all the users or majority users don't pay, they'll be in trouble.
Yeah, so that comes back to my point where these companies are incentivized to give loans, and they are not transparent in terms of like how they measure who gets
Yep.
how much, right?
Yep.
So you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's either you are more risky, that's why you get more, because the more risky you are, the more the more lucrative you are as a customer, because you default, you'll pay late, but you will pay. And if you pay on time and whatever, you're not so good because I cannot make more money out of you. If I lend you 1,000, I get 1,000, you're not a good customer. If I lend you 1,000 and I get 1,500 back, then you are a good customer. That's number one. You look at, I think we flip this around, right? You look at sugar, okay? So previously in societies where they are sugary drinks are not introduced to them, and this is usually indigenous people or whatever, like Coca-Cola, snacks and all this stuff, right? It's not introduced to them, right? How do they know that sugar is bad? Because they have never experienced it.
Yep.
And then when they do experience it, it's like, oh, I'm diabetes lah, I'm obese lah, and what lah.
And you got them hooked.
Yeah. It's the same thing. And if you follow that model, right? How does the sugar water industry see this customer as lucrative? How? When they are alive. So as long as they're not dead, as long as we give them sugar, and they're not dead, then that's fine. It's as simple as that. But that's my point, and Alex's point is that you users are responsible for the money that you take.
But at the same time, is that I agree with you earlier. Like we need to have more education in terms of being prudent with the spending, more financial literacy, because there's something that's very lacking here. Because people just spend, but don't even think about what happens at the end.
Yeah. So the bottom line here is all these financial services platform that are available on your phone can be seen as beneficial, but I question the motivation of the service providers. All right, that's the end of the show, guys. And I just want to remind you that we are available on podcast. So if you want to listen to us in your car or before you go to sleep, just look for Sorry Chin Chow. Let's talk about on any of your favorite podcast platforms, and we're there. If you are listening to us on podcasts and you find this show and all our other episodes useful, please do give us a 5-star rating, because that helps the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do give us a thumbs up. If you like the show, drop your comments, suggestions, and feedback, because we like to hear from you guys. And don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And I just want to tell our podcast listeners, if you have an opinion or if you have a thought or a suggestion about today's show or anything that we talked about, drop us a voice note. You can record it on your phone or over WhatsApp and send it over to what's it called again? What's the email?
Let's talk about @sorrychinchow.com.
Yes. So send it over to let's talk about @sorrychinchow.com, and if it's interesting, we'll play it on our next show. All right. That's pretty much it. This is me, Amin,
And this is Alex.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.